Hamstring tightness is a symptom of the pelvis tugging on them when it's rotated forward in what is known as an anterior pelvic tilt. If you fix the position of your pelvis, your connected hamstrings will automatically loosen up. Through my experience as a sports and exercise scientist, I've identified the following 4 factors as the main culprits behind tight hamstrings and an anterior pelvic tilt. So in this video, we'll expand on each of these issues. I'll guide you through a series of self-assessments to identify which of these 4 factors you need to work on, and I'll provide you with specific exercises to start fixing each one. Step 1. The first thing we need to look at is your hip flexor flexibility. For a visual representation of how the hip flexors tighten up and cause an anterior pelvic tilt and tight hamstrings, watch this short video.
Here's how sitting causes tight hamstrings. When we sit for long periods of time, the hip flexors become tight in a process known as adaptive shortening. Herein lies the problem. Adaptively short hips forces the pelvis into an anterior pelvic tilt, and because the hamstrings are connected to the pelvis, they're in constant tension. But if you don't quite understand what I'm saying, come over to the pulley system for an analogy. This is the front of the hip. The pulley system represents the pelvis, and back here are the hamstrings. So when I'm adaptively short here, it's like I'm tugging on the front of the hip. This causes a bad alignment of the pelvis, anterior pelvic tilt, and now I'm in chronic tension in the hamstrings. So if I can relieve the front of the hip and allow the pelvis to realign itself, now I have nice and loose hamstrings.
As mentioned in the clip, prolonged sitting is the predominant cause of hip flexor tightness. Given our sitting-centric lifestyles, the extreme prevalence of this issue is unsurprising. So, do you have tight hip flexors? Try this simple test. Lay on a table facing up and scoot your hips down until they are right at the edge of the table. Then grab one of your knees and bring it to your chest, while allowing the opposite leg to relax and to hang freely off the front edge. If you have loose hip flexors, your knee will rest in line with or below the tabletop and your shin will hang straight down. But if you have tight hip flexors, then you will find your knee to remain above the line of the tabletop and your shin will stay in front of the vertical line. Now, if you don't see the results you were hoping for, don't worry, I have some solutions for you. If you have tight hip flexors, use the following 3 methods to improve your flexibility. The first is to use a standing desk at regular intervals throughout your workday to promote an extended hip posture and prevent the hip flexors from tightening due to a prolonged time in the chair. I've used a simple fold-up unit from Amazon for years to transform my existing desk to a standing desk. I'll drop a link to it down in the description below. I've also been testing out the Apple Vision Pro for this purpose. The ability to place screens at eye level and adjust the keyboard in an ergonomic position has been an absolute game changer for my posture as a whole. There's a lot to discuss regarding my experience working on this futuristic device. Please drop a comment if you're interested in a comprehensive video review about how I'm using the Apple Vision Pro to improve my health. Now, if you do prefer a traditional sit-to-work setup, then frequently altering your sitting position is the second thing you can do to prevent the hips from being stuck in one shape for too long and tightening up. Sitting on the floor is another great hack for increasing mobility, as being on the ground forces more range of motion out of the hips. Finally, using a dedicated hip flexor stretch like this has been shown to significantly enhance hip mobility and reduce anterior pelvic tilt. An effective protocol is to spend 1 minute in the stretch for every hour spent sitting. With hip flexibility addressed, let's move on to the equally crucial step of improving the stability of the midsection. Core stability is more effective than stretching for correcting tight hamstrings and an anterior pelvic tilt. A 2020 study tested this by putting a popular yoga stretching program known as Durga Namaskar head-to-head against a core stability exercise program to see which of the 2 approaches could improve hamstring flexibility the best. While both methods saw positive improvements, those practicing core stability exercises showed superior hamstring flexibility compared to the yoga group. How did core stability exercises outperform the yoga stretches? Well, the core muscles stabilize the pelvis through their direct connection. Insufficient strength or endurance in these muscles leads to a less powerful contraction during movement, causing them to lengthen and to allow the connected pelvis to tilt forward. This anterior pelvic tilt then exerts a pulling force on the hamstrings, making them tense up. So a stronger and more engaged core improves pelvic alignment during movement, thus alleviating tension on the hamstrings and enhancing their flexibility. The next question to ask is, do you have a stable core? Research suggests that if you can hold a plank position with good technique for between 1 and 2 minutes, you're in the normative range of core stability endurance. Highly trained athletes are recorded to being closer to the 3-minute mark. But for most people to achieve sufficient core stability for everyday activities, aiming for the higher end of the normal range around the 2 minutes is optimal. If you're not quite there, regularly doing the plank exercise is a great way to build more core endurance. This is how to do the plank exercise with perfect technique. Assume a push-up stance, shifting to your elbows instead of your hands. Thumbs pointing up, not down, will ensure that your shoulders are more firmly back in their sockets. Brace your core by tightening your abs, drawing your rib cage down, clenching your glutes, and engaging your lats as if pulling your elbows towards your feet. This ensures your midsection gains 360 degrees of stability, preventing any sagging or twisting. In training, split each set into 6 to 8 reps of 20 to 30 second holds with 5-second rests between reps. Short rest intervals allows blood flow and oxygen to reach the muscles, important for fighting fatigue and maintaining good technique. Increasing one's endurance in this exercise is as simple as doing more sets. For those seeking more advanced core strengthening, the McGill Big 3 exercises are recommended. Named after the esteemed spine expert Dr. Stuart McGill, these exercises are the gold standard for core stability improvement. We coach these exercises in our Strong Foundation course, which you can find through the QR code here or through the link in the description. Next, let's turn our attention to step 3. If you have an anterior pelvic tilt and tight hamstrings, check your feet. An interesting study took 35 healthy individuals and placed them on inward sloping wedges to induce a flat and overpronated foot position. The objective was to see how a change in foot stability would affect the rest of the body. The researchers found that as the foot arches collapsed into overpronation, it caused a chain reaction, sending the shin and thigh bones into internal rotation and pulling the pelvis forward into an anterior pelvic tilt. Of course, a forward rotated pelvis pulls on the connected hamstrings, keeping them under continuous tension. This was confirmed in another study that assessed hamstring tightness and foot posture in 188 people. The authors discovered that the more the feet were found to pronate, the tighter the hamstrings were found to be. This evidence underlines the importance of building strong feet for maintaining good body posture and muscular flexibility. Building strong feet can start with something as simple as choosing minimally supportive footwear, like barefoot shoes. The research shows that this simple approach can be highly effective. Here's a short video explaining one of these exciting studies. Here's how to increase foot strength by almost 60%. No exercises are required. Just use this scientific method. Take your existing shoes with thick and stiff soles, cut them in half to see just how ridiculous all the support is. Then throw them in the trash. Next, you want to find a pair of barefoot shoes with minimalist soles. The extra flexibility will allow full movement through the 33 joints in each foot, stimulating all the foot arch muscles to get stronger. Finally, you'll want to wear them for at least 5 days a week for a minimum of 6 months to get the results found in this study. And what I love about this method is that by just swapping out your existing stiff and restrictive shoes for more flexible ones, you can give your feet a workout on every step. I've personally been wearing barefoot shoes for the past 5 years now and could never even think of wearing anything else. I believe so much in minimalist footwear that half of our website is now dedicated to curating and reviewing the best barefoot shoes in production. You can head over to bfs.fit to learn more about barefoot footwear, how to transition to them, and the brands we have tested and recommend. Alright, now for the final step of this video. Which muscle should you strengthen to fix anterior pelvic tilt? Well, a recent study set out to answer this question by getting 41 individuals to actively try to move their pelvis from an anterior tilt to a neutral position, while recording their muscular activity using specialized electromyography. The results showed that all the participants in the study used one of the 4 distinct muscular activation patterns to correct their pelvic position. The first utilized a strong activation of the abdominal muscles and the glutes at the same time. The second strategy employed the glutes and back muscles. The third involved the glutes and hamstrings, and the fourth style relied on only using the glutes to realign the pelvis. Notably, the gluteal muscles were the constant across all patterns, displaying the strongest role in pelvic posture correction, which is why they are the recommended muscle to strengthen to fix anterior pelvic tilt. Now keep this in mind while we answer the next question. Which muscle should you strengthen to fix tight hamstrings? Well, there was a triathlete with a history of tight hamstrings that would cramp during his races. So, some researchers got together and tried to fix his hamstring issues using a very interesting approach that didn't involve stretching them at all. Instead, the researchers focused on activating and strengthening his glutes. They hypothesized that his glutes were underactive, causing his hamstrings to become overly active to help compensate for their weakness. They figured that this compensation was what burdened his hamstrings to the point of cramping and becoming chronically tight. So, did it work? Well, following the 24-week glute strengthening protocol, his hamstring flexibility improved by 34.5%, and he successfully completed consecutive races without any cramps. Success! So, to answer the original question, the glutes are the best muscle to strengthen to fix tight hamstrings. But this Q&A is not over. The next thing to ask is, are you glute or hamstring dominant? Try this test to find out. Lay on your back with your knees bent, then straighten one of your legs. While keeping the leg outstretched, lift up your hips into extension and hold the position for 10 to 15 seconds. If you feel that your glutes are doing most of the work, then you're glute dominant. However, if you feel that your hamstrings, lower back, and even your quads are doing the bulk of the work, then you're not glute dominant. But don't stress. To get strong dominant glutes, begin with isolation exercises that minimize interference from assisting muscles. This focused approach enhances the mind-muscle connection, a process termed glute re-education in scientific studies. The clamshell is an ideal exercise for this purpose. Here's how to do it. Lie on your side, knees bent and feet together. Lift your top knee by engaging your glutes in a hip abduction motion. Place your hand on your glutes for sensory feedback to ensure muscle activation. For a greater challenge, add a resistance band around your knees. To lay a strong physical foundation that you can build anything on top of, check out our course here. And for more free content, check out our videos here. See you there.